Hey guys. Got to rope lock the. I've got to lock the door in here because the window blowed open. I don't know if it might be the temperatures bouncing up and down. Because my head does react to that. Alright, so gonna be out of the modern rustic right now. Chapter 2, What to Look For in a Homestead. When looking for property when looking the property over for the first time, be mindful of the local weather through the seasons and the effect it could have on the land as well as your lifestyle. Such as down in Oklahoma, how hot it gets and how hard, like, it is really hard to beat that heat with plants, and like the tornadoes, that kind of thing. So, for example, my current property has a very long driveway with a mature stand of pines on the east side and a wide open windswept field on the west. In Minnesota, the harshest winds and weather strike from the west. I knew from the first second I saw it that I was going to have problems with the straight line winds in the summer and snow drifting issues in the winter. The property was such a good deal and such a rare opportunity that I convinced myself that an intelligently placed snow fence and a bit of luck would spare me some headaches. The unfortunate reality is that it only takes four or five snowstorms or ground blizzard events in the winter to bury the 4-foot snow fence. Once it reaches the top, I spend the rest of the winter lamenting at how a single inch of snow and a modest wind will roar across the field and seal the driveway shut. In the summer, straight line winds have killed 2 trees and damaged 3 others. So, yeah, I get that. Yeah. One of the things I want to do out here is I want to get some of the white pine trees from Family Farm that are only $10 a piece, and I want to start putting them out here and out there. So, Aaron wants to like have him out there for a windbreak, and I agree with him. So, plus I mentioned this before in one of the other videos, we'll be able to use the pine needles, in making things like pine needle tea and salves and other things. So, excuse me. Now, I'm not saying that I should have passed on the property just because of this exposed driveway problem. It still stands that it was a great deal. It's a beautiful piece of land that in most other ways meets my needs. What I should have done and what you should do is consider how a situation like this will affect your budget. In my case, I should have allowed for another $10,000 in my initial budget for a plow truck, a blade, and snow fence, and some small pine trees for a buffer. So the pine trees is a good idea. Plus, I think in our case, on the area where we're gonna have our homestead and where we're gonna put the driveway, I think it's gonna be a good thing because I don't think it's gonna drift shut as easily. I don't think. Plus, I'm gonna try to do like, well, we'll have the privacy fence too, so that'll help. But I'm probably gonna go ahead with like the pine trees anyway, because I really like the pine trees. All right, slope and elevation. Another major thing to consider is the change in elevation across the property and what you intend to do with each area. This is a factor because cold air settles downhill. The southwestern corner of my property is 50 feet higher than it is on the northeastern corner. Luckily, my 5,000 square foot primary garden and my primary orchard are in this warmer southwest corner. The center of the lot is at the same level as the garden. Then it drops down gradually, allowing the house to be a lower level walkout. South. And I'm wondering maybe if we should put the orchard out there. I really want the orchard out there instead of out here. Plus, it'll get the sun from the east. But it'll be more north. Sorry, I'm tired. I don't know. I have to do some research on that. At the base of what has become my daughter's favorite sledding hill is a stand of mature apple trees planted by the previous owner. These apple trees always flower a week later than their warmer contemporaries up the hill by the garden. If a freak cold snap comes through in the late spring, it usually has little impact on the fruit trees near the garden, but it always hits the apple trees at the bottom of the hill hard. Still farther downhill past the stand of pines, there is a gorgeous clearing ringed by oaks, butternut, black walnut, and sugar maple. All of these hardwoods are cold hardy and their pollination needs all happen in late spring. When I walk down there, I can see the mistakes of a previous owner who saw this gorgeous sunny clearing as an ideal spot to grow fruit trees. A series of narrow dead trunks stand as a silent testimony to some hard spring of years past. The fruit trees apparently died, while the late blooming strawberries and raspberries were left to fend for themselves. After a few years of allowing them to grow wild, I can now go down there and forage for sweet wild-grown berries through half the summer. As much as I am tempted, I fear that I will never be able to keep fruit trees down there. Keeping the changes in elevation in mind, I will go a long way towards helping you choose what you are going to grow and at which locations on the property. See, I'm really debating on that now. I am really tired, you guys. I just don't think there's going to be enough room out there. You know what I could do? I could go ahead and do half and half, but do it in such a way to where the cold hardy ones are up there and the ones that are, not as cold hardy down over here. Just do that. Think about that. Okay. Keeping the changes in elevation in mind will go a long way towards helping you choose what you are going to grow and at which locations on the property. See, I'm just thinking about that. Simply sticking trees in the ground or tilling up garden beds where the sun shines the most might ultimately cost you a lot in the future of trial and error. Available water. Whether you lean towards gardening, orchards, or raising livestock, you will need water. One of the major advantages of buying a home on an already existing property is that the wells have already been drilled. You can find out how deep the water table is, and most sellers are willing to have the water tested, so you'll know if there are any issues with biological or chemical some in the book. Contaminants. Unless you are really going deep in the backwoods, you are probably going to be looking at a property in an agricultural area. This means that there is a chance of farm runoff. Before buying any property, you should have the water tested for bacterial safety, nitrate, lead, arsenic, pesticides, and volatile organic chemicals. I know where our well is, and it should be okay. Because it's over here. Now with ours, where our homestead's going to be, that's one of the reasons I want to do rainwater catchment instead of in-ground well. Because I don't trust it from the farmers' chemicals out there. The other reason why I will not do in-ground gardens. At the same time, you also shouldn't assume that a piece of raw land has an ample water supply. Not all landowners will let you have test holes drilled or points driven. If I were to start over with a piece of raw land, I personally would turn away from any tract of land where I didn't have proof of water presence and how much is available. I have a neighbor who bought this property assuming that the water table was shallow and would easily supply his needs. Looking at the property, it wasn't a wild assumption. The land was bordered on the north side by a wide flowing stream and the Mississippi River on the west. He decided to drive a point in a location that was convenient for him. Driving a sand point for a well by hand is not a walk in the park. It's a butt-busting endeavor as you pile drive with relentless fury. Unfortunately, the water table that he assumed he'd find around 20 to 25 feet down ended up being 37 feet down. Once he had everything established, he started testing the volume only to discover that it would barely produce enough water to keep his garden alive, let alone provide for the house. When he discovered, after talking to the other neighbors and around him, is that deep down is the substrata. In the substrata, there are contours in the bedrock which cause the water table on that side of the creek to have a wavy shape. In order to get the water volume he needed, he was going to have to use psychic powers to pile drive the point into one of those troughs in the wavy aquifer. From what I hear, it took him 3 more points being driven down into the soil before he finally hit a deep enough part of the aquifer that would provide him with water for home and garden, even if we are stricken by the deepest drought. As for those 3 points, there are ways you can leverage them out of the ground again, but getting them out is not a sure thing. Every foot of metal well shaft that you drive in might just be a foot of metal that will stay there jammed into the soil until 3 weeks after doomsday. Of course, driving a sand point isn't the only method for acquiring well water. I actually have drilled a well that was bored into the ground in 1993. The well runs only 26 feet deep and hasn't for a single second failed to provide ample water for the house, the gardens, and the orchard. On a clear summer's day, if the wind blows just right, I can see across the valley floor to my neighbor with a 4 sand point stuck in his yard and feel his envious glare. Now, if for some reason we cannot do rainwater catchment,
according to J.D. Powell,
sorry, I will come up with another way. I might actually purchase separate water tanks and see if we can find a way to attach the piping and hand pump to it. And we'll have to fill it from here, but we'll have to have a hand pump put in up down here. I mean, that's going to be a pain because we'll literally have to carry water from down here to fill our tanks. I don't, we'll see. Anyway, things I've been contemplating for our property, so. On a clear summer's day, if the wind blows just right, I can see across the valley floor to my neighbors with a 4 sand point stuck in his yard and feel the envious glare. A drilled well is a much more expensive thing. You basically cannot do it yourself. You need to contact a professional well drilling company. They will come out, survey the area, and most will do their best to place the well in a location that works for you and your buildings. Cost can be a massive problem there. I can't quote you what to expect in regards to your budget. It all varies so widely from region to region, company to company. I had a relative who recently purchased a piece of property at a great price out on the Colombian Plateau. He planned everything out perfectly in his budget except for the 387-foot deep well shaft he needed just to give him a flow of 1.3 gallons per minute. This flow rate would just barely be strong enough to handle a garden in a modest house. You might run into a situation where the aquifer on your property is only capable of handling the water needs for the house. All is not lost in situations like this for irrigating a modest-sized garden. Before running irrigation lines, I actually watered my 5,000 square foot main garden with a series of rain barrels. They filled themselves directly from the drain water off the roof of my barn. It was only in the deepest of droughts that the storage in the rain barrels wasn't enough and I had to take from the well that runs the house for a few weeks. In my case, I was lucky to still have enough flow rate in those dry times to handle both. Now, that is an option. See, I'm contemplating and thinking about all this stuff. But I'm closing this with Julian tonight. Alright. The best advice I can give when it comes to water is to make a lot of calls, ask a lot of questions, and check in with the county regarding water. Get a recommendation and an estimate from a local well driller before you make your final application for a loan. See, I couldn't get a loan for it, so we got to figure something else out. Alright, and that was it for chapter 2 on what to look for in modern rustic homesteading. Turn that page down. For chapter 3, because that's on amenities, like waste disposal, outhouse, that kind of thing. Alright. So, I will get off from here, and I'll get this up there, and I will see you guys in a bit on the next video. So, make sure you do your research, you guys. Check your subscriptions. Click on that notification bell and click on all to make sure you get all the notifications. Like and share the videos on all your platforms. And don't forget about the new subscriber packages. Leave that comment, just letting me know that you're interested in it. The new subscriber package is a hand-painted Faith First Farm and Homestead t-shirt. And I always show this, I like to show this one because this is my favorite one. And a hand-painted Faith First Farm and Homestead mug. I I have to get the paint sealer for the mugs. And I have to get some, start buying some more t-shirts. So the t-shirts are actually brand new for those. Anyway, but just let me know that you're interested and then leave your email and I will get with you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Do your research, you guys. Bye, guys.